So today we have a 2011 Mazda, and it's here because the customer's complaint is the MIL is illuminated. Let's have a look on the dash here. So you can see the check engine light is on. This thing has about 137,000 kilometers on it. So we're going to start with a scan and see what code is being generated. So I've already ID'd the vehicle. I've worked on this vehicle before, not recently, but I have looked at it before, so we're going to scan it. It should auto ID. Bluetooth is connected to the vehicle. And there it is. And we'll start with a network code scan. I always prefer to do a network code scan because there could be other computers with other codes in them that may help or may initially suggest other things. Leak detected in the Evap system. Obviously the gas cap is a primary cause for this. That was pretty quick. Scan date computers. Anti-lock brakes has a power supply system code in history. Looks like abnormal message from the BCM. Okay, not overly concerned about that, just the P0442 code. And according to SureTrack, gas cap is the most common thing to look at. Now I don't want to touch the gas cap just yet because I want to see if there's a current problem. I'm going to see if this will allow me to do a purge and seal test or something similar to a purge and seal test to see if there's a current leak in the system or if it's intermittent. So this system does not allow me to do a actual purge and seal test like on GMs and most Fords. It does allow me to command the purge valve duty cycle on to up to 100%. So I've loaded the data list here and I'm going to watch the fuel tank pressure. Now the vent solenoid is off. Now I'm not sure if this is normally open vent solenoid or normally closed vent solenoid, but it's off right now. So when I command the purge valve on to 10%, 20%, 30%, you could see it begins to build a vacuum in the fuel tank, read in inches of water, which is a very low amount of pressure. Let's try 40%. You can see that it does build a vacuum in the tank. But there's no seal per se, so if I turn this off again, you can see the pressure in the tank returns to basically atmospheric pressure again. 0.15 inches of water is virtually atmospheric pressure. Remember, this is an absolute pressure reading. It doesn't indicate. Yeah, I believe that's an absolute pressure reading. So we're going to take the gas cap off and have a look at it and see if there's anything obviously wrong with it. So the gas cap was on and tight, and I took it off and looked at the filler neck, and it's perfectly clean, rust-free. I did put some silicone grease on the seal. I'm going to try this again up to 30% and see if it seems to respond. I think it went 40% last time. It responds the same way. It looks the same. Dropped to negative 1.28 inches of water. And then when I go back to zero, it leaks off right away. So the next thing I'm going to do is command the vent solenoid on and off. I'm going to do that key on engine off and see if I can hear it clicking, just to make sure that this vent solenoid's not stuck. So we'll exit out of this test and look for the vent solenoid. There's the evaporative emissions vent valve. Yeah, the funny thing is this thing loads the wrong data list, so I have to change the data list to this data list. Here is the vent. Where is the vent valve here? Purge. Oh, here it is. Alright. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear that on this recording, but I can positively hear that thing clicking on and off. So it's obviously not stuck. I'm just going to look up the theory of operation of this vent valve to see if it's normally open or normally closed. So I'm going to go into guided component tests. I'll have to look and see what engine this is. That's an F. 2-liter. Okay, so it's a 2-liter. We're going to go into engine and into the evap system. Oh, that's nice. Thanks, Snap-on. You got the purge solenoid, but no vent solenoid, so no description about how that works. Obviously, the purge solenoid is duty cycled. Where is it? Under the engine cover, attached to the bracket between the head and the battery. So it's actually on the engine. That's usually the location for a purge solenoid. But no vent solenoid. I know I can find it because it clicks, but for whatever reason, Snap-on didn't include it in here in these component testing. So I've loaded the vehicle into Identifix, and I did a keyword search for P0442, and confirmed cases are 38 of the canister vent solenoid. Let's see if we can find out how this system works. The vent evap monitor drive cycle. Let's look at the DTC for troubleshooting. Indicates that a leak has been detected as small as 40 thousandths of an inch. Yeah. Have to check the fuel level in the tank, see if we can run an evap test on it right now. So some of the possible causes for this is obviously a small leak anywhere in the system, so an aftermarket gas cap, which it doesn't have. Canister vent solenoid is not seated on the charcoal canister, filler pipe damage, loose connections, vapor lines. So I've already visually looked at the fuel cap, so I'm going to lift it up in the air and have a look at the components underneath. The fuel tank is currently full, so I don't think it's going to let me run a purge or bypass cold soak test, but we might give that a try. Maybe I'll move the car forward and set it up on the hoist, because that test takes several minutes to run, and I might as well let it run while I'm doing visual inspection. So I'm back in the engine controls here, and I'm looking for a purge test, like an automated test, and it doesn't seem to have one, unless it's under generic functions. No, it wouldn't be under generic functions. Should be under functional tests. Air conditioning, camshaft, desired idle, EGR, canister valve. That's just commands the canister valve on, vent valve on, fan duty cycle, but there is no test to do a purge and seal or run an automated test or bypass the cold soak timer or any of that stuff. So I can't even run a test with this scan tool to see if that's available. I might fire up another scan tool to try that. So we're going to try this MaxiSys and see if it's in here. First I got to find Mazda. Would be on the last page. Sorry for the glare. Let's do an automatic ID, read it. Okay. VIN decoding. Yes. Dynamic stability control. I don't know. I don't think it is. Not blind spot monitoring. Advanced key entry, not equipped. Now I'm not going to bother doing a network scan on this because I've already done that with the other scanner, and I don't think it's going to generate any new codes that were present. Could get this screen a little cleaner here. It's taking a little while to load the data. Come on, you can do it. I will say this, the Snap-on scanner is faster at retrieving data and performing tests. Yes, it has tire pressure monitor. It still asks me questions. Okay, so I'm going to go into Diagnosis, Control Unit, PCM, Active Tests, see what kind of tests it lists here. I'm looking for a bypass cold soak timer type test, so I can run a test while it's in the shop to see if it will fail right now, if there's a current problem. Air conditioning camshaft, exhaust gas, purge valve. Okay, there's another page. I guess they don't give you that option. So we're underneath the vehicle doing a visual, looking at the fuel lines and the vent lines. Here we can see a couple of lines. One of these is obviously the vent line and one is the fuel line. I'm sure this is a returnless system. Anyways, the charcoal canister is behind the tank up above the subframe here. There it is there. And for the life of me, I think the solenoid is up above there in that area. I can see an electrical connector up there, but it's nearly impossible to get to. I don't see anything visually wrong with the filler pipe. It looks pretty clean, relatively rust-free, just the brackets are rusty. Again, I wish I could run a test. I mean, okay, there's the connector. I can see barely up there. Now, I'm going to command the solenoid on and off again and listen for it underneath here. So now I'm standing underneath the vehicle, commanding it on. Well, what I can do is I can find out for sure if this is normally closed or normally open, and we can test the vent solenoid by putting smoke in the fuel tank filler neck and sealing it or closing it, however that happens to be, either energized or de-energized, and see if it leaks out of the charcoal canister. So one of the steps in the P0442 troubleshooting chart from the manufacturer suggests that check the powertrain PIDs and make sure that the fuel level is between 15 and 85%. Well, it's over 85%, so I wouldn't be able to run a test if I had the capability anyways. It says it will cancel the Evap test if the fuel level is lower than 15% or higher than 85. And then it says allow MDS to run the Evap test. Now, I'm not sure if that's an automated run or if it's a requested test. But nevertheless, I can't do that. So, again, I'm going to try to figure out whether that vent solenoid is normally open or normally closed. So I found this information in one of the fixes on Identifix. It says to back probe and ground the sky blue wire at the canister vent solenoid with the key on and smoke the Evap system at the canister purge valve hose. Cycle the canister valve on and off several times to see if it will leak. If it doesn't leak on the first try. So that tells me that it must be energized to close if you have to ground the wire to close it. So why wouldn't you just use the scan tool to ground it? I don't know. I'll look at see if there's any other suggestions for this problem. Here's another case that I found which basically says if you have a scan tool that can command the powertrain control module to run an evaporative emission system test, do that and see if it passes or not. If the system passes, the problem's intermittent, could be caused by an intermittent sticking purge solenoid valve. I think they meant to say vacuum vent valve or canister vent valve. That seems to be the most prominent cause for this problem. Lots of cases of replacing that valve. Just because it clicks doesn't mean it seals. So I got the purge solenoid commanded on, so it should be closed. I got the evac smoke machine running, connected to the vent or the purge line at the charcoal canister here. This is the purge line that runs down along the side of the gas tank, and this is it right here. So I've disconnected it here and I'm pumping smoke into the canister, and I do see some smoke coming out. It's coming out of the vent up there. So obviously that vent solenoid is not sealing. Not coming out of the filler neck, but this is the vent tube here. I really need to take the inner fender skirt out to see exactly where that's coming out of, but it definitely is smoking up there, as you can see. And I've got the solenoid commanded on. See what's involved in removing this inner fender skirt. Doesn't look too bad. So I've taken the right rear wheel off and the plastic inner fender skirt. There's two push pins, one up here, one down here, and one self-tapping screw. And I'm going to run it and see if the smoke is actually coming out of this filter here. Is a vent filter. And you see that filter? Yeah. So if the smoke's coming out of here, then that vent solenoid is actually leaking. So I'm going to start up the smoke machine here. Let it run for a few seconds. Get a brighter light here. Because it could have been leaking around the filler pipe up here. But this filler pipe is relatively rust-free. No smoke yet. Let's let it run for a while. Well, that pretty much confirms that the vent solenoid is leaking. I'm going to command it on and off with the scan tool while we're doing this. So now I'm going to turn it off, which should open it. So you can see a lot more comes out when I open it. Let's close it again. It does slow down, but it doesn't stop. Turn it back on. You can see a lot of smoke coming out now. And turn it off. That was off, now we'll turn it on. So obviously the vent solenoid is leaking, so that's going to be an interesting job to replace. It's up on top of the filler pipe down there, but we'll order it up and see what happens. So the local parts supplier does have a listing for this thing, so it looks like it's mounted in the line. This is Dorman part number 911-711. It's not cheap, retails for $130. And there's nothing stocked locally, so I'm going to check on probably Monday to see if it's cheaper from the dealer. Sometimes you never know. So maybe we'll make a part 2 of this just to confirm it, but I'm 99% sure that that's the problem. We'll call this one a wrap.